My name is Owegi Hannington. I work for Participatory Ecological Land Use Management, that is PELUM Association, at the General Secretariat. What can support the agricultural territorial market and convening in Africa from the outcome of the next meeting should be how do we structure the advocacy campaigns around territorial market in a way that it draws an appealing, compelling reasons for the African governments to adopt agroecological practices, especially trying to advocate more at the African Union level to see how agroecological territorial markets can be able to function and function well and cover all the players and protect the consumer rights and all the policies around it. What could be different in my view is trying to understand the multi-sectorial approach to the convening. I think there's a need for us to try to bring in the aspect of private sector players in the convenings for them to understand and get the buy-in, because it's through multi-sectoral players who will be able to find how do we get agroecology and territorial market financing and other private support services that will come into the sector. We also need to look into the areas of policy dialogues, the policy dynamics around the territorial markets and agroecology. The agroecology policies are still not well refined, in my view, and I believe they are what we are relying on mostly at the moment are agriculture-based policies, which does not take into consideration the agroecological aspects, in my view. That's an area that needs to be looked at. Then the structuring of the territorial markets and agroecology. I mean, territorial market players looking at the various levels of entrepreneurship, the private sector. We have to disaggregate some of the elements that are supposed to be covered in the territorial markets that are uniquely different but the same in a way that be able to bring out the key features and aspects of agroecology. The celebration of My Food in Africa is a very good campaign and a very good strategy for trying to take us not back but rekindle our thinking about the African food system. This is something that we have not been able to embrace for a long time, and we are ignoring the African food system. And we find that even the promoters in the African food system, we are talking about African food system, but when we have ourselves back there, wherever we are at home, so our background at home, we normally rely on do a lot of the industrial food, which is not an African food system. So I believe this convening in Zimbabwe, like it's been a promotion that AFSA have been trying to put through on My Food in Africa, is going to provide the necessary glue that bound or bring up the African food system players together and drew synergy. Because one thing that we're doing in the African food system, we are doing African food system in silos. Some of the networks are doing this in silos. We are not doing this thing with doing our synergy and moving together. So you find our voice is not amplified well enough, because if every player or every sector is doing it in their own corners, it doesn't bring out the force and the synergy that is required to bring in the African food, My Food is Africa's campaign or system onto the table. So the meeting in Zimbabwe will bring in new knowledge, new synergy, and new strategies of doing or developing a strategy for campaign for My Food is Africa and strengthen the movement in the network. What I would expect as an outcome from this synthesis out of these 3 meetings is a well-documented and disseminated advocacy strategy materials that can be shared in the networks, targeting all the blocks, the African governments in particular, targeting different countries and different regional blocks, and eventually targeting the African Union for policy change. Because these documents are going to be our tool that we can be able to use to establish the mass movement for critical mass movement for agroecology and territorial market initiatives. I think there should be a stronger platforms and pathways to create the necessary engagement with the African states and the governments. Because unless we create synergy pathway and strategies out of this conference, out of these convenings, out of the 3 convenings, we'll not be able to share much or be able to have much to be able to showcase on what we can be able to do or we're going to do. So we must establish some kind of a stronger bonding network and pathways.